Yes, yes, yes. What is up? What is up, everyone? This is MCR, and I am Matt Hunter. Oh, hold on. That was about to be a copyright flag right there. Anyways, yes, Mixed Combat Radio. I'm Matthew Hunter, and it's gonna be a fun show. Obviously, we have a lot to get to. We have Canelo Alvarez being a free agent. Oh my God. Oh, and maybe fighting Caleb Plant. Me and Gary's best dreams are coming true. Like, I don't know what happened here. Like, 2020, God, are you there? What is happening? Obviously, we have fights that happened just yesterday that were, how do we describe it, Gary? Forgetful. Let's just be quite honest. It was one of the most forgetful weekends of the sport in 2020. And again, it's 2020, the year where we had like no boxing for like 6 months. I'd rather take the no boxing for 6 months instead of what we got last night. But without further ado, let me get to my co-host, the one and only Gary in Dallas. Gary, how are you, man?
I'm good. If you didn't watch the fights last night, you didn't miss anything. There was nothing really to see. Matt was right. Haney going win a decision. We'll get into it. But we really didn't miss anything. If you watch the fights instead of the Notre Dame Clemson game, you made a bad decision, and I was one of those people.
Oh man, that's so good. I'll be honest. The only fights I saw was obviously the highlight, which was the complete fight of the Luis Ortiz, Alexander. What was his name? Sanchez? No. What the fuck was his name?
Flores.
Alexander Flores. I saw that 49-second knockout. Okay, that whatever that was. I didn't watch any of that PBC card. And I also only watched the Devin Haney fight. So I'll be honest, guys. I apologize. I will not be on my A game. Plus, I have I'm ill. I have like whatever I have right now. It's not the Rona, I hope. So, I've just been dying here, to be quite honest. This is my Michael Jordan flu game, just letting everyone know. So I only watched pretty much the Haney fight. And oh my God, that was tough to get through, Gary.
It wasn't fun to watch. If you go back on the PBC card, the Cuban heavyweight, Frank Sanchez.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying he's a world beater. He's big and strong. He's not very accurate, but he throws off pretty crisp combinations. He's not going to beat
Fury. He's not that good. He's not that accurate,
He's worth watching, I would say. There's talent there. He's not going to be a heavyweight champ. Maybe one day he's as good as Chisora, maybe something like that. There's talent. There's potentially a top 15 guy. And then what I wanted to say was watch him and then watch Ajabe. Ajabe is fundamentally better, but just I don't know who would win that. Like that's kind of the level that he's at.
Okay.
Remember when Ajabe was the big thing? Everyone's like, Ajabe is where it's going to be. He's the future of the heavyweight division.
Dude, no one really said that though.
PBC fanboys did. When what's his name walked out of the ring?
Dude, that was legendary. Let's all admit that, okay? That was one of the best moments in boxing history. You're right that there was 5 people online that thought FA was gonna be the next big thing. Everyone else was kind of arguing over I think still sort of arguing over Joyce and Dubois as who could be the guy next to a degree. But Joyce is 35 already. So
I never said Joy. I would have said Nathan Gorman was gonna be the guy. I thought Gassiev was going to be the guy because he was 24 when he jumped up. I said, put him on the roids, bulk him up 20, 25 pounds, turn him into a real heavyweight, and he's got everything you'd want in a heavyweight. But then he just didn't fight for the better part of a decade.
You're right about that. So let's get to the Haney situation or the fight. Obviously, we're going to talk about Canelo in a second. That's, I think, probably the biggest news in boxing, but we all saw the fight last night, and I think that seems to be the lightning rod of conversation right now on boxing Twitter, on just the fandom, articles being pumped out. We're seeing a lot of Haney content being put out there, or at least conversation being put out about him. And Gary, it's hard because I know we're probably going to have the same opinion here, so I don't want to almost repeat ourselves because we've had this opinion for some time. But Haney is still a prospect. And what I mean by that is he is still, 22 years old? How old is he now?
Not even 20. He turns 22 before the year's out. He's still 21.
Okay, so he's 21 years old. He's a guy that has over 20 fights now. He still deserves to be fighting like club level guys. Not deserves. That's probably the wrong way to phrase it. He still probably should be fighting club level guys and like maybe faded veterans like Gamboa still. But the idea of him fighting legit top 5, top 10 competition, people that are his contemporaries right now at the very highest level, just doesn't really make sense. And I think the only reason we're going to see that soon is because of the amount of money they're paying Devin Haney. At some point, that's like he's getting paid so much from Matchroom to Zone that in theory, they're going to sort of like Canelo. You have to fight a premier opponent eventually, right? I'm assuming that they are lining up Devin Haney versus the winner of Ryan Garcia, Luke Campbell. I think Devin Haney loses to either one of those guys. I don't think it's hard to really pinpoint what it is with Haney because there's like little things like I don't think his power is all that great or anything, to be honest.
No, he didn't even drop Gamboa. Everyone drops Gamboa.
You look at me, you see like really high technique, but there's a little bit of a robotic nature to it at times. You don't know if there's like a lack of fluidity with his tactics, with the strategy, whatever it may be. It's hard to pinpoint what is wrong with Devin Haney right now. Okay. But it does feel like he is not there yet. Like some other guys have proven that they are there. They're ready to make that next jump up. Like Teofimo Lopez obviously proved against Lomachenko. Like maybe some of us are thinking Ryan Garcia can prove against Luke Campbell, who's a much tougher opponent than Yorkis Gamboa. But regardless, we're not seeing it yet with Haney. Am I wrong in that? Does it feel like there's this mass exodus from the Haney bandwagon? Because it feels like there is. I feel like everyone online is also sort of echoing this too and agreeing with what I've been saying for some time. But Haney's not there yet. He needs a few more years. He needs to wait till he's 25, 26 years old probably to then fight top 5 competition. That would probably be the benefit to him. He might have actually, in hindsight, probably should have gone more through the amateur route. But that's, hindsight now. Gary, I mean, your thoughts obviously on the performance, Haney overall, because I know I didn't really talk about the performance per se, but I thought the performance was lackluster, like the title of the show says. I didn't think he was that aggressive, that active with let's be honest here, a plodding Gamboa. A Gamboa that clearly was not ready to fight anyone of note. And I think if Haney really wanted to press it from the gate, he could have got Gamboa out of there early just by accumulation. But he didn't. He wanted to throw 20 to 40 punches around, and that's what we got.
Which I was surprised by. I thought he was going to, because we talked about, a lot of his, I don't want to say bigger fights, but more televised fights with more eyes on it. He's kind of looked so. And I thought given what Teofimo did, given what Tank did, that he was going to go out there and he was going to try to have his moment. And he certainly didn't. He certainly did not. I mean, there was nothing wrong with his performance. It was fine. He won. I think I scored 1 round for Gamboa. It wasn't really close. It wasn't competitive. Gamboa looked every bit the 38 or 39 years old that he is. And I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. At this point, right now, in 2020, Tanahara beats Devin Haney.
Hey, look, I'll be honest. I've kind of been like, that's ridiculous, but you can have that opinion. They're at the same stage.
Yeah.
Like that. I think that's what we should frame here, that certain prospects have obviously ascended to contendership status, to then championship status. And regardless of the belt that Haney has, he has not ascended to those statuses yet. He just hasn't. He's still at the prospect level, like a Hector Tanahara.
And he's got an email world title. It's incredible, right? Like, yeah, I saw what Matt saw. I mean, his reflexes, he's really twitchy, he's quick, he's fast, but there's something just not right. Like, a little bit mechanical. Like, he looks like he's not exactly 100% comfortable in there. And maybe that comes he is just 21 years old. Yeah, but I saw nothing in there that says that he's ready to fight Loma or Teofimo. He gets outclassed by those guys. As far as Campbell, I think Campbell outboxes him. And I think Campbell's going to beat Ryan Garcia. Does Ryan Garcia beat him? That's interesting. I don't know. I need to see how Ryan Garcia looks, because Garcia is more explosive, right? He's been blowing these guys out. So unless you think he's going to blow Haney out, he's going to have to adjust. He's going to have to be in there for the long haul. And we haven't seen him do that against anybody yet. Well, we have. Like, Jason Velez, honestly, is probably better than anyone Gamboa has fought. I mean, anyone that, it's not Gamboa, anyone that Haney's fought.
Yes.
Right? And Rye fought him when he was like 19. It was like a couple of years ago already. And Haney still fought nobody that good yet. So we haven't seen Ryan, this version of Ryan, the new version of Ryan, really tested. And are his skills, we know he's got the speed, we know he's got the power, but does he have the skills to win rounds with a guy like Haney? I don't know. We're going to find out in the Campbell fight. I think Campbell wins that fight. I think he wins it on points. But I certainly could be wrong. He could certainly knock Campbell out. That's not out of the question.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's yet to be determined about Ryan Garcia. We're going to see with Luke Campbell, who I think is a much harder opponent than Yuriorkis Gamboa. And that is, like, that goes without saying, right?
Yes.
Okay, but for the listeners, for the viewers, right, for those that watch the show, I mean, we all need to be in agreement and sort of in a consensus here that if Ryan Garcia goes out there and, let's say, knocks out Luke Campbell, we can't talk about Haney fighting Ryan Garcia right now. It just doesn't make sense. It makes sense from a network perspective.
Right.
Right? Because both guys are in the same network. Obviously, Golden Boy, which we're going to get to later on, is dying of big fights right now. And if and the idea of like Ryan Garcia beating Luke Campbell and then beating Devin Haney, hey, that's a decent path towards making yourself a real established name in the sporting world. Let's be honest here, if you're Ryan Garcia at a very young age. However, if I'm Golden Boy, if I'm Ryan Garcia and I beat Luke Campbell, I only want Teofimo Lopez or Gervonta Davis. Those are the only fights I want and care about. Yeah. Those are the only fights that make sense for me. Haney hasn't deserved to fight me yet. I just beat a top 5 guy. A guy that's our contemporary. Not even a contemporary, a guy that's more proven. Has a gold medal, right? In the Olympics. A fucking truly established guy. No. I'm fighting a real name now. Haney, I'm sorry. You can keep your AOL belt there. I'm gonna go fight for real belts or against real stars.
I like how you went with AOL, not Google, right?
No,
not even Proton Mail. You went with AOL to really try to delegitimize it.
I know, right? Is that worse? I'm sorry, guys.
You didn't say his Gmail belt. You didn't say his Proton Mail.
I'm in Yahoo, man. I went even worse.
Yeah, because some people still have a Yahoo email address, right? Because they just never changed it.
Mm-hmm.
When was the last time you sent an email to @AOL.com?
Never.
It's been a while.
I'm 5 years old. Never. But no, I just one of those things where I think Haney, it's okay to be honest about where he's at right now. I think his potential is still super high, but he's not ready yet. He still looks like a 21-year-old that is a prospect that is learning the ropes. And I know that I've not been 100% consistent on this, but I've usually been. I am usually against fathers being trainers, right? I think it would be smart for Haney to switch from Mickey Bay being his number 2 coach to Mickey Bay being his number 1. That would make a lot of sense to me. And I think it would help him gain confidence more, to be quite honest. And also, I mean, look, this is why I think most prospects, when they make that giant leap up in competition, they falter. They usually lose. Like, think of Lubin, right, to a degree. Because they're not ready. They haven't really developed the skills. It's very rare that a guy like Teofimo Lopez can go from fighting like Diego Madaleno to knocking out Richard Comey in like 2 rounds and then outboxing Lomachenko. Like, that's rare. Like, that's not normal. Most prospects have to work their way up, okay, for a comfort level, to get their game prepared, to get the sharpness of their game ready. And I don't think Haney has done it. Haney put on a really tepid performance against a wounded animal in there. And that's just the reality to it.
No, I agree. And this thing where, Haney can outbox Teofimo Lopez. I've heard a lot of that. No, he can't. Teofimo Lopez just outboxed Lomachenko. Like, no, Devin Haney can't sit there and outbox Teofimo Lopez off the back foot. That's not going to happen. Like, that's not going to happen. He can't. But, so there's really no path to victory for Haney against these guys, right? Like, I'm not saying his power's not good, right? Because he hit Gamboa, who is really chinny, with a bunch of clean shots and never really hurt him. Certainly didn't drop him or end him. So his power's not that good. His skills are fine. His athleticism, his quickness, his feet are good, but it's just he's not there yet. He's not fine-tuned enough, right? Like Matt said, the amateurs, if you're trying to turn them into the best fighter possible, that's probably the best bet. But you're also giving up money when you do that. Like I want to make money. Like that's why I'm a prize fighter. I want to make my prize. So I don't blame him for going pro, right? It's like college quarterbacks who leave when they have 2 years of eligibility left. Well, he's going to get paid now. Would it probably be better for his long-term development if he stayed in college? I mean, maybe.
But this is a little bit different, though, because it's not the exact comparison to, let's say, like especially back in the day, basketball, and it doesn't happen anymore, but like high school star players jumping to the NBA, right? This would be like a star high school player going to the Euro leagues, because that's kind of what Haney did. He went to Mexico, went to Tijuana, and padded his record. Okay, and even he talks about how he fought a guy, right? They even talked about this on the DAZN telecast. Stupid Todd Grisham.
Todd Grisham, how awful he is, by the way.
Oh, he's the worst.
We need to carve out some time for that.
We can.
Man, bad.
But they talked about how like Haney fought, let's say, like some unnamed opponent in Mexico, right? And then 3 weeks later, they went back down to Tijuana, and they fought the same guy, but he put his name different. Like, and as somebody that lives only just 2.5 hours from Tijuana, Mexico, okay, give or take, depending on traffic, everybody in this region goes to Mexico to pad their record. Yeah. That's what they do, especially Tijuana.
I've seen it with a ton of San Antonio fighters who go to Mexico to pad their record. They usually don't get paid. But they go there, they get fights whenever they want. I had a buddy, I'm not going to say his name because you will see him on a upcoming card, who went there. The guy missed weight. I think it was a 126 fight, missed weight by 17 pounds, and he came in on weight. It's a 126 fight. So Mexico wasn't going to sanction the fight. Like, whoa, let him eat lunch first, and then put him back on the scale. He ate lunch, right? He put on like 7 pounds. Came back, weighed in at 134 or something like that, and they said, "All right, we'll sanction that."
Also, I don't know if it's like this anymore, but the Midwest kind of used to be like this a lot too. Like you would get like Iowa, and like regional shit, like in barns and shit like that. People wearing jeans, like it's what it is. It's combat sports. We love it, right? But that's the equivalent. It would be like a star high school player going to the Euro leagues, padding his stats, and then getting a big, deal with the Knicks. He's going to be the franchise player of the Knicks. What happens? Right? He's not ready. He's all that shit in the Euro leagues. It helped him a bit, but was it the best thing for him? Probably not. Especially back then, we're talking about like when basketball used to do that. Haney, I think, is just, again, not there. I'm not saying he can't be there at some point in time, meaning a top 5 world level guy, but it's just clear as day that name any of the very top guys in the division, he loses to them. That's a sign that he needs more development at like the top 15 level, to be quite honest. And that's fine. Like his next fight should be Javier Fortuna. That's who you should be fighting next. I was going to say
that. That was the name I was going to say. Or
a wily veteran that's going to rough him up. But Haney should be able to outbox. Like Haney should be able to win at least 7 rounds against this guy if he's that good, right? And learn some things in the process.
Don't put him in with Shapovalov. That's never fun. Did Shapovalov still fight?
Yeah, whatever happened to him?
I don't know.
I love Denis Shapovalov too, man. He was like a mini Provodnikov that like no one realized was like that talented. But for people to like go back, look up Denis Shafikov's record right now. I think he has wins against Jamar Herring, Richard Comey, and a few other names that are like really like quality names too. He was one of those guys. If he was consistent and still active at 135, he would be the perfect guy for a lot of these prospects. To be quite honest, but
and that's why they would never put him in the ring with him, because fighting that guy's never fun.
No, it's not, man, dude. I think if the fight's on YouTube, it has to be, because it was like in a Russian club with like 300 people and like dancers. Remember the Richard Comey fight? Oh my god, dude! Russian fights are the best. Everyone go find that fight and watch if you haven't. That Richard Comey Denis Shafikov fight is one of the most underrated fights of the last like 5-ish years, I would say. Anyways, let's talk about Todd Grisham being utter trash. Because you wanted to pencil out time for that. Also, I will open up the entire card for you, Gary, because I did not see it. So I did not see Weili Zhang. I did not see Filip Hrgović. I did not see Rashad Maty. I did not see Raymond Ford. I did not see this Eastern European guy, who I'm not going to try to pronounce his name, or Darren Cunningham. I didn't see any of these guys.
I didn't see Cunningham, but I saw the rest of the card. Like, I like watching prospects, but the mismatches, bro. The mismatches. It was so bad. Like, all the guys look fine, but like, look who they're like. The level of opposition was so bad. Raymond Ford looks really good. He got a knockout. Which I like to see him get knockouts, because he's got the skill to hurt people. Now I want to see him finish people, and he did that. The guy Rashad Maty fought. Oh man, and Maty looked good.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that's lost like everyone you can think of. Like, he's been used to be a knockout whipping post for prospects.
And then the big Zhang. He's big. I didn't see anything in him. Like, I don't see it. Like, I don't see a future heavyweight contender. I mean, what do y'all think? I mean, again, and he fought Rydell Booker.
Yes, I think so. Hold on. Sorry. Yes.
And you could tell Booker.
No. Hrgović fought
Booker. That's what I'm saying. Hrgović looked fine. Who did the big?
He fought Devin Vargas.
He had a decent record, that guy, right?
It's 22-7, but 5 of those losses. Out of the 7 losses, 6 are by KO.
They said it during the fight. They said he's a tough guy. He's only been stopped 5 times. Only been stopped 5 times. You might want to hang him up if you've been stopped 5 times.
And by the way, that's a lie. It's 6. Though, actually, no. At the time, it was 5. You're right. He's lost to Junior Fa. Red flag already. Got knocked out in 1 round by Andy Ruiz. Got knocked out in the 3rd round by Dominic Brazil. Got knocked down in the 3rd round by a guy named Jason Bergman. I don't know who that is. Knocked out in the 9th round by Andre Wurzik, that dude. Okay. Kevin Johnson knocked him out back in 2009. There you go.
What I'm saying, the level of competition. And Hrgović, you could see the skills. Like, Hrgović is good, but Rydell Booker was just like, he wasn't interested in being there really. Like, you could tell he was collecting the payday. They said he was fighting like a sparring partner, like just keeping his high guard up, trying not to get hit too much. I like watching prospects, but that was brutal. You gotta get better. Yeah, this old commentary was terrible. You gotta get better opponents than what you got. The matchmaking there was tough to watch.
Now, on the DAZN commentary point, how would you fix it, Gary? If you're Len Blavnik, right? You're on your private jet setting all over the world, right? Making deals, dealing with the mob, all that fun stuff, allegedly. What would you do to fix this atrocious commentary booth?
All right. So, just as like a decent, loving human being, and I know people have families and bills, I don't like to recommend firing anyone. Like, it's not something I like to do. Okay.
But
and I'm not gonna suggest that. Maybe find something else from at the company to do.
Be a secretary.
What I will say was this: I was watching the Nakatani fight in Japanese. I don't know anything that announcer said, but I know he's better than Todd Grisham. Right? Like, I enjoyed listening to him because at least there was like some excitement in his voice. Like, Grissom is awful. I don't know how he got this job.
He just says stupid shit.
Stupid things all the time. He's not good. He's not witty, right? Like,
and he tries to be really funny, and like no one on the commentary team ever laughs at his jokes.
Yeah,
and really awkward every time he makes a joke, and no one laughs.
You feel like you're punking him. It's like when somebody hits their first career home run, and no one in the dugout comes out to congratulate him for like 30 seconds, and then like they're punking him. Like I feel like Grissom's jokes, like they're not funny, but like you can tell they're a joke. You could give him a chuckle, right? Like, he is awful. He's not a good boxing mind. He's not good at calling blow by blow. Like he's not funny or witty. He tries to be like the football announcer who also does Iron Eagle, right? Where Eagle is really like dry, but it's really funny, right? Like he tries to be like that, but he's just not. No, Grissom's awful. So I would try to find something else in the company for him. And I think
like another company.
No, yeah, you could Office Boy, something like that.
The dude has worked at ESPN, Fox Sports, like he's worked everywhere. Like he could get a job.
Why? Who likes him? Who thinks he's good?
I don't know.
It's got to be nepotism.
He must know someone, right? Or is related to someone.
It's got to be. I see no other way. I can't see him sitting down in an interview and then the glass table logo coffee mug executive saying, "We have to hire this guy. We have to have him.
This is the one."
Right? So I would bring how much better you didn't like Brian Kenny. How much better is Brian Kenny than Todd Grisham?
Oh my God. Night and day. And you guys know I don't like the PBC commentary team either. Like especially the Fox team. I love the Showtime commentary team, even without Paulie, who I don't like as a human being, but I thought he was a really good commentator. But I think Showtime's team is still really the best team in the sport, right? Like it has to be,
yeah,
kind of by default, because everyone else is kind of like I don't like Tesla Tor on ESPN. He annoys me so much. Who else do we have for commentary teams? HBO's dead. So.
Well, that was my next thing. What's Jim doing?
Dude, if you brought Jim, and you know what, I'll be honest, because 92Q saying that the Grisham and Moore are cool. First off, Grisham is not cool. He is 1000% that douche frat dude that is like the most annoying dude and always gets too drunk at the party and passes out and like pisses himself. That's Gary wasn't a frat like I was. You instantly recognized or remembered one person from your frat that was like that, right? That asshole, right? Yes. Yeah. You always try to be like the president of the fraternity too. And like, dude, like you always piss yourself at parties. No, that's not going to happen. Okay. Sergio Mora, though, I think he's decent. Like, I'll be honest. I think he's all right. I hate Chris Mannix, though. I cannot stand Chris Mannix. I don't know what it is. And maybe I shouldn't be the one throwing the stone because I probably sound like a nerdy fucking dude. But like he sounds too nerdy to me and it bugs me. And I maybe that's wrong. But he sounds like that nerdy dude that like talks to you about shit. And you're like, dude, I'm just trying to watch the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't add anything here. You just like annoy me. You know, Sergio Mora at least tries. I think he does try. I think he obviously from just a pure experience factor, he brings in more, brings more to the table than anyone else in terms of like describing technique and strategy. But that's because he actually has boxing experience. So like he should be able to do that.
I would keep more, but I would do a 3-man team. I would bring someone else in for the blow, and then I would have 2 guys. And you're not gonna lie, but I would say like maybe Paulie and Sergio. They can kind of feed off each other. And then just bring in someone who can call the blow-by-blows. Like I think Lampley. Like, and even if Lampley doesn't want to do all the cards, get Lampley for the major cards. Well, they don't have Canelo anymore, but for the Joshua fights or whatever, right? I was gonna say for the Canelo fights, and but they don't have
oh my god! RIP to Zone.
Not good, but a lot of money like came off the books though. Like it's bad that they lost Canelo, but now
no. We're gonna get to it. Let's wrap up at least the Zone commentary topic, and then we can move on. Okay, if you want.
Yeah.
I love the idea of Jim Lampley coming back. I'll be honest. I know like we all made fun of Jim Lampley, and he obviously had huge HBO bias, but that dude at least was like entertaining.
And he was incredibly good at calling a fight. Like he
He was.
a Pacquiao and a Freddie Roach fanboy and all this stuff, and he was extremely biased. But at his job, throws the right hand, gets out of the way, moves to the left, and he's so good at calling a fight. Like he's so incredibly good at it. And Grissom is so incredibly bad.
No, they do not.
Like Lampley is good at his job. It's just like you wish he wasn't so biased. You know what I'm saying?
No, absolutely. Absolutely. While like Tessitore is just bad at his job, in my opinion, or like Grisham is just like atrocious in every single way. Like Brian Kenny, for example, kind of like the Jim Lampley factor. Like Brian Kenny is a good blow by blow or just overall commentator. He is like he knows what to say, how to say it, when to get emotive, when not to. Like he just knows how to like add to the moment as best as he can. Other guys I know, or at least I've heard, they to me just always detract from the moment. They always take away from the moment. Like whenever I hear Todd Grisham yelling about something happening in the ring, it automatically takes away from what's happening in the ring. Well, even like Lampley, who I didn't like, he at least still added to moments with his voice. Maybe because he was just so iconic because of his longevity. That helps. But the dude was also just really fucking good at his job in terms of like the actual like technical side to how to be a blow-by-blow commentator, which takes a lot of work. That's not something that like everyone is born to do. But anyways, I agree. I like Jim Lampley. And I'll be honest, I don't mind the Paulie edition. I don't know what Paulie's even doing right now. Like, have we even heard from him since he
has some kind of relation with Sky Sports over there, doesn't he? Like I know he's done Sky Sports fights before.
That's right. You're right. He's still with Sky Sports. I'm pretty sure you're right about that. No, I think he would make a lot of sense, and I think he would add a lot to Sergio's style because Sergio is very bland. That's like the one knock on Sergio I have is that he is very dry, very boring. Paulie's not that. Like Paulie is a very lively voice, a very lively commentator, and that helps to that adds to a broadcast. And it's not like fake enthusiasm too. Like that's the main difference too. It's genuine. Like he loves boxing, so he's gonna get excited when shit happens. So yeah, I love that. It's a lot of money though. I don't think they do that. Like paying Chris Mannix, Sergio Mora, and Todd Grisham is, I mean, what 10% of the cost of paying Jim Lampley and Paulie Malignaggi? Like Jim Lampley alone is going to cost you seven figures.
Maybe you don't. Maybe you get him for just 10 cards a year or something like that, and then that he doesn't have to commit because he's not young anymore. I don't know that he wants to do what he did with HBO today. Like he wants to go all over the country, going to a different city every week or every other week. So you get him for a couple of cards, the cards that you expect a lot of people to watch. You have Lampley on. And then who's the other guy that used to call the undercards? The basketball announcer. On the zone. Give me a second. Keep talking for a second. Keep bashing.
I can easily bash Todd Grisham. Yeah. I just love that. Hey, first off, I'm gonna get political here. Trigger warning to all you fucking Trumpers out there. But Todd Grisham is a massive MAGA dude, and he had to throw in a communist dig.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, I did hear that. I thought of you when you said that. I don't remember. Oh, about Gamboa. Yeah.
And the weird part is the context of the dig made no sense because I think he said, I'm paraphrasing here. I put it on Twitter like verbatim, but I'm paraphrasing here now that like he's no longer in a communist country, so he doesn't have fans forced to cheer for him. I'm thinking, Todd Grisham, you're in a bubble right now, you fucking idiot. There are no fans there to cheer for anyone right now, you fucking idiot. What are you saying, Todd? How does that have... I hate Todd Grisham so much.
He had that planned out. Like he was for a time to insert. Ryan Rucco was the guy I was thinking of. He was the one that used to call the undercard fights on the zone. I
don't remember him.
He's a Brooklyn Nets announcer, and he did a lot of ESPN games. He's a basketball announcer. He's good. He's not a boxing head, right? So it's like there would be a learning curve, but he's really good at calling it.
Remember that one dude that did the World Boxing Super Series cards? It was just like the one dude that did it.
Oh, yeah.
How has he not got a job?
That's true. That's
'Cause
true.
he would do entire like 8-hour cards by himself, like no like secondary booth to go back to. It was just him. And he was like really good at the job too. And plus he's British. That helps.
It does.
Like you have an accent.
It makes you sound smarter.
Yeah, absolutely.
Being from the South, unfortunately, makes you sound dumber. Being from Britain automatically makes you. I can say the same thing in a Southern accent and a British accent, and everyone's going to think the person that said it in the British accent is way smart.
Absolutely. It works. People. Moving on. Let's get to obviously the giant news that hit. I think Friday. It hit Friday just 2 days ago. Canelo Alvarez is now a free agent and has been released from his Golden Boy and DAZN contracts. Every side has, I think, put out a statement, except for DAZN technically, right? Has DAZN put out an official statement?
No, I haven't. That's what I was wondering. Like, it took me some reading to see if he got out of that contract, but he's out of both. I have not heard anything from DAZN.
We have not heard anything from DAZN, but in terms of all the reporting, it states that he's out of his Golden Boy contract and DAZN contract. Golden Boy, aka Oscar De La Hoya, has put out a statement that was, I'll be honest, I wanted more pettiness. It was too polite, so we're not going to read it. But digressing, we have now Canelo Alvarez, a complete free agent, lined up allegedly per Salvador Rodriguez of ESPN Deportes, lining up a Caleb Plant fight for December 19th. No network attached to it, of course, right now. But assumingly it would be pay-per-view and most likely even a PBC Fox pay-per-view, because I think that was the Wilder date. So in just a few months, we went from Canelo Alvarez in a legal battle with Golden Boy and DAZN to Canelo Alvarez is completely released from his contracts with those two entities, and now potentially fighting Caleb Plant for his IBF super middleweight belt again on pay-per-view. Again, I would assume at this point on Fox. Gary.
Matt, the pay-per-view model is dead. Eddie Hearn even said so. Okay, so this can't go on pay-per-view because it's dead. And Canelo's the biggest star in the sport. So I don't know what you're talking about. No, so you take the good with the good and the bad with the bad, right? I used to get to watch Canelo fight twice a year, plus a card basically every week for $100. Now I got to pay $80 to watch Canelo fight on one night. That's the downside. The upside is he's going to fight Caleb Plant. That's the upside. He's going to get all the best fights. And I keep hearing who he's going to sign. He's not going to sign anybody. He's going to take fight by fight and make himself a very, very wealthy man. The crazy part is Caleb Plant is the best fight. It's not the most monetarily lucrative fight for him, right? Like, and he's still taking it. Why? Because Canelo don't care. People think I can beat me. I'll fight him right now, right? Like, I was never. I'm kind of indifferent on Canelo. I don't really root for him or against him. But like, wow, he's making it hard not to root for him. Right? He's fighting the best guy. Like the guy said, if I could make any fight, what's the one fight I would make from at 60 or 68? That guy. And who's the first guy he calls out? That guy. If you're a boxing fan, and put the money, the $80 aside, just the fights that you're going to get. If you don't love that he's a free agent and can fight whoever he wants, like you got to get your head checked, because this is great. It's Canelo. Canelo don't care. Canelo put the Mayweather fight at risk to fight Austin Trout because people said Austin Trout was good, right? He just doesn't care. He fought Laura, and Oscar's like, no, you can't beat him. And Canelo's like, I told you to make the fight. Oscar was right. Canelo couldn't beat him, but Canelo still went and took the fight, right? Like, Canelo doesn't care.
Dude, I'm so glad that more people are finally becoming a Canelo stan, like I've been for years now. For years, okay? I think you hit all the right points. There's a little bit of downside, obviously, from just the cost to the consumer, how this is obviously going to cost us more than the previous model on DAZN. We are quite aware of that. However, like you said, it automatically led to a fight like Caleb Plant happening, which a lot of us hardcores, and I will use the word hipster here rarely, but I will use that term here, because there's even hardcores that don't like Caleb Plant. I think he's kind of overrated because he hasn't really fought that many people. He's only had really one quality name on his resume. Let's be honest about it.
Porky Medina, guys like that, but I mean,
yeah. He only fought Foogatti, who was a really good win at that time. Now, we all know that Caleb Plant has potentially the best boxing skills of the super middleweight division. And this is, I think, very much in line with like the Laura pick out or like the Laura fight, right? It's a name that clearly a lot of people, I don't know if it's a majority or if it's a massive percentage, but a lot of people are saying that he might have the boxing skills to beat me. Well, I'm going to go fight that guy. Fuck it. Like, I don't care. Like, I don't care about the money. I don't care about all that shit. Like, I don't care that I can make bigger fights with X and Y name. I want that guy. He has the best boxing skills? No, I do. I want that guy.
That's old school. Like, I'll beat that guy. You know, like it's old school. Roy Jones said that. Like Roy Jones, when he got disqualified, lost to Montel Griffin, right? Fight that he was about to stop him and hit him when he was down. HBO said to him, I mean, you can fight Montel again, but we don't really want that fight. It wasn't that entertaining, and there's just better fights that we can make. He went to his management and said, okay, I want my green belt back. Make the Montel Griffin fight and get me paid as much as you can. And that's the end of the discussion, right? Like, I feel like that's Canelo's like, this is the fight I want. I'm a star. Make the fight. That's the end of it. That's the fight I want.
Canelo is like 100% entering like the Mayweather like money stage, isn't he? Like he's going to completely control his career, have complete autonomy, and can do and like make and say whatever he wants. And I'm excited to see that Canelo, like completely off the leash of Golden Boy in the zone, that can make and do whatever he wants and say whatever he wants. I'm excited. Like, imagine the first interview we get, like the real interview we get of Canelo, like that's a sit-down interview post Golden Boy. Can you imagine the pettiness that's going to come out? Oh my God. I am so excited, Gary. You have no idea how excited I am for that interview, okay? That is going to be the most hyped interview in my life, okay? I'm sorry, it is.
And now we never have to get Canelo versus Jaime Munguia, which you knew in the old paradigm you were going to get at some point.
And you're going to get that before you got, Caleb Plant, Dave Benavidez, Callum Smith, Billy Joe Saunders, Jamal Charlo, Triple G. You're going to get Munguia before all of those fights. Trust me, with Oscar in charge. Trust me on that.
I still think on an individual basis, he's going to make agreements for a one-fight deal to fight on DAZN, to fight DAZN guys. I'm not saying it's going to be on DAZN, but to fight DAZN fighters. Like, he can fight whoever he wants now. My guess is his next two opponents, should he win, and maybe if he loses, but I think if he loses to Caleb Plant, then it's Caleb Plant and Caleb Plant. If he beats Caleb Plant, I think it's Caleb Plant and then Charlo. I think those are his next two fights.
Casual base guy. I'll get to that question. I see it right now saying, Matt and Gary, what does Ryan's future hold with Golden Boy? We'll get to that in a second because obviously what's next for DAZN and Golden Boy is a massive part of the of this story. Yes, I think Canelo bashes Oscar. Absolutely. Physically, potentially. They do not get along. Dude, I'm telling you, okay, I've been to Canelo media events. I've been to several now. Him and Oscar never talk, never really like engage with each other. They try to stay on opposite sides of the room. Trust me on this. And actually, most of the times I've been at Canelo media events, Oscar doesn't show up. Neither does Eric Gomez. Like, that's just the reality. Like, when I went to his media workout for Liam Smith, I think it was the Liam Smith fight, Oscar wasn't there and Eric Gomez went there. B-Hop wasn't there. Like, none of the owners of Golden Boy were there. It was just Canelo.
Canelo fought Floyd Mayweather in the biggest fight in the history of boxing at that time. Floyd De La Hoya wasn't there. So,
We're basically saying, why doesn't Mixed Comment Radio read our comments anymore? And they said, now that I say that, they read our messages. No, Rubisky, I read messages. I just want to get through like this talking point first. I'll be quite honest. And also,
I can't do two things at once, so I'll try to read your message. Then I can't pay attention to the show. I have zero multitasking skills.
And know this, guys, I read all the messages. Like, I have the chat up right now, so like I'm always looking at that. So like, don't worry, I always see what you guys say. And if it's something that's like I think really pertinent or funny or whatever, I'll add it to the show. That's not a big deal. We're basically saying Gus Johnson or Just Johnson on DAZN. I don't know who Just Johnson is. Gary, you opened up the show, didn't you, on YouTube?
I did. That was I did not.
You know, you can pop out the chat, right, and then close the video.
Yeah, of course I do that.
Well, I mean, I think there's like there's 3 dots. Yeah, 3 dots at the very top. Hit that, and it says pop out chat. You can do that, and then the chat's its own like Google Chrome window or whatever you're using.
I think maybe only you have that.
What? No, trust me. Everyone has that.
Wait,
what?
Wait.
On YouTube.
Oh, I'm checking out my stream.
Not StreamYard. No. Robinski, I like Gus Johnson. He wouldn't be bad. But I don't know if he would get the call, to be honest.
Gus Johnson is so incredibly good. He's good. When he was in between contracts, like he had a contract with, who was he with before Fox? CBS, maybe? CBS. And then he couldn't do anything like mainstream. So he was doing like minor league soccer games and like his soccer calls.
Was it NBC? He
was on Showtime because he used to do, so I'm thinking it was CBS. Now he's on Fox.
You're right. No, you're right. My bad.
He was doing like minor league or whatever, like soccer games, like or college. But like the call, I was like, I want to watch soccer now. Gus Johnson is so incredibly good, but he's got a contract with Fox. I don't know how realistic it is that they could get him.
Yeah, I don't know about that. But that, I mean, if DAZN got Gus Johnson, yeah, that'd be a massive improvement from Todd Grisham. I mean, exponentially better than Todd Grisham, of course. But digressing. Now let's talk about, I mean, where do you want to go from here, Gary? Because there's so many different avenues we can. Do you want to talk about what's next for DAZN? What's next for Golden Boy? What's next for Ryan Garcia, who's obviously, a pupil of Canelo, but still under contract with Golden Boy and DAZN? I mean,
do you want to get into Ryan? Because somebody in the chat asked about Ryan Garcia.
Yeah, a couple people did. Yeah, we can talk about Ryan right now. I think Ryan, he might be in a harder position from a contract perspective, but again, it's hard to say because we don't have his contract. We don't know what his contract states. We don't know what outs there are in the contract. But you would think if Canelo went this route to get out of his contracts, that he would be kind of pushing Ryan to do the same, right? Like behind the scenes, there would be conversations between the two about this issue. And I would assume that they are working towards getting Ryan Garcia out of his contracts with both Golden Boy and DAZN, or maybe just a contract with Golden Boy. I don't know how the contracts work exactly.
It's tougher, though. I don't know Ryan Garcia's financial situations. I know that Canelo Alvarez had the leverage because he could sit it out, right? I don't know that Ryan Garcia, I don't know. Maybe he's got way more money than I think. I have no idea. But it would be tougher for Ryan Garcia because he hasn't made the millions and millions and millions that I know of. I mean, I could be wrong.
He's making money. I'll put it that way. Like he was making $500,000 against Jason Velez on ESPN, wasn't he?
I remember his last fight. Remember Tank Davis called him out because he was getting paid $200,000.
Yeah, but that's after he left the ESPN circuit, right?
That's true. I don't really know his purses. I don't know what he does. I don't know what kind of money he has.
Regardless of that, though, if you have the backing of Canelo in the eventual Canelo promotion that's going to be created, right? He would be taken care of, I would say.
I would think so.
You know what I mean? Like, I would say that hurdle, which is a hurdle comparative to Canelo, does get sort of leaped over quite easily because you have the backing of Canelo Alvarez now. I don't think money would be as much of a factor. I think it would be maybe like, do we have an actual legal ground to try to break this contract like we did with Canelo? I don't know if that's the case. And again, we're now in a position because I think we should link it to like what happens with DAZN next. We're in a very rapidly evolving situation here with DAZN, Golden Boy, this entire sort of conglomerate, including, let's say, Matt from USA attached to it to some degree, right? It does feel like the clock is now like ticking a little bit faster, right? On like DAZN US not really being a thing anymore. For one, DAZN US doesn't have its own like social media anymore. I think that's hilarious. The fact that they've like deleted or like burned through like 7 different accounts, so to speak. Like DAZN's in like a weird place right now that it feels like it's burning cash and it's about to be sort of just taken out of its misery to some degree. And again, to preface this for the DAZN weirdos that listen to this show, yes, DAZN Germany is quite successful and DAZN in other countries are quite successful, but there's zero argument you can make that DAZN US has been successful. Zero. And they just lost their biggest commodity in Canelo Alvarez. That is the reality. So DAZN, I think, again, is on borrowed time right now. So the idea of like Ryan Garcia like dealing with a DAZN contract, maybe that's not an issue in 6 months. Like we just don't know right now. Like how this is going to progress, I think it'll go in a myriad of directions, to be quite honest, because at any time these parties can, I think, just leave. And like the idea of like Golden Boy trying to stick around because they're now restructuring their deal with DAZN. I want to add that Golden Boy's entire deal with DAZN is going to be restructured because of this. How does this relationship stay intact long term? It doesn't. It's impossible at this point in time. So whenever Ryan Garcia sees his exit window, he's going to take it and he's going to be with Canelo Promotions fighting whoever, right? Like that's just the reality. When that is, I don't know. I think also the Luke Campbell fight, we talked about a little more about like that mattering from like a ranking perspective, who should Ryan Garcia fight next, all that stuff. But from a leverage perspective, if he goes out there and let's say knocks out Luke Campbell, he has a lot more leverage now than I think people want to give him credit for. And also, he is, I mean, one of the biggest stars in the division. Like that's just the reality. He's a bigger star than Teofimo Lopez. Like that's not a hot take. That's just pure numbers, pure facts, pure stats. And unfortunately, that will help him as well. Gary, I mean, any thoughts on Ryan Garcia, what he does next, how this affects the Pandora's box that this has opened?
I think that like Ryan Garcia is a brand of his own. He's not going to be hurting for money. He's going to try to get out of that contract. The legality of that, I have no idea. Whenever his contract is up or when he's ever out of that contract, right, he will be with Canelo Promotions or whatever that's called at that particular time, right? He will be with Canelo, and I think they'll kind of, be like a duo, like where they go together kind of thing. Mm-hmm. It's like Ryan Garcia is going to be fine. Did you see when they had the boxes on Family Feud?
Excuse me. I did not actually watch the episode, but I saw that they were on and challenging the UFC fighters.
Yeah, and so it was the WBC versus the UFC. And what's funny is Riddick Bowe was on it. Riddick Bowe literally threw the belt in the garbage. Right? It's like, this is a weird pick. Of all the people we could have picked, Riddick Bowe, who literally threw your belt, not figuratively, literally threw it in the garbage. That's a weird pick. But like, so we're watching the show, and Ryan Garcia is the captain, right? And he gets up and he walks up to the podium, when they do the face-off, right? Mm-hmm. And my wife goes, wow, he's really good looking. Right, like it's the first, what I'm saying? Like it's the first. Like he's gonna be fine, right? Like even if he didn't box, he'd get way more girls than you do, right? Like Ryan Garcia is gonna be fine. He can put his face on anything and it will sell. And then you put him together. So like whatever he does, he's gonna be. But then you put him together with the biggest name in boxing, like. I don't know what his future holds, but he's going to be fine. He's going to make a ton of money, and he's going to be linked, I think, with Canelo and whatever Canelo does.
Long term at least. Yeah, absolutely. Now, thoughts on DAZN and them losing. I mean, their biggest attraction, right? Like, what else do they have now? Anthony Joshua fights that like are shown at like 2 p.m.
I mean. They still have Ryan Garcia.
They still have Snooker, right?
No, Hooker's with PBC now.
No, Snooker.
Oh, Snooker. I gotta tell you, I have no idea.
I like how you said like Hooker, like like that's a name that I'm like, Hooker, like he's gonna bring a lot of subscribers to DAZN.
got my $10 a month.
I mean, are you like me where like DAZN's clock is just, again, ticking faster now? Like it's just a matter of time, and that time is now much shorter than I think what we previously thought for DAZN US.
It depends on what they do. They want to save it? I don't know. If they do, they have some liquidity now. They don't have so much money tied up in one guy who they couldn't afford. I mean, they could afford, but like I'm not going to dump any more money into this, right? Now they don't have that big hit on the books. He's off the books. Do I want to invest money and try to get other fighters? I don't know who you can get. You know, Eddie Hearn did okay signing U.S. fighters. Like he got Jacobs, he got Haney. You know, like okay, that's okay. I mean, he had no success in pulling guys away from Al Heyman and PBC. Whatever Heyman has said to those guys, they trust him and they're loyal to him. It just didn't work out. He has not been able to get Andre to fight. I don't know. It's tough right now because Al Heyman's fighters are so loyal to him, right? Can he try to get Terrence Crawford or something like that away from?
Who, by the way, only has one more fight on his contract, which is the Kell Brook fight.
But that's what I'm saying. If he gets Terrence Crawford, then he's in the same spot that Bob Arum's in with him. It's like, well, I don't have any. I mean, he can make a Virgil Ortiz fight, you know, things like that. But he's not in a great place to get Crawford a huge fight either. So you would think Crawford goes to PBC, but who knows? I don't know what DAZN can do, really. I mean, look, I'm not in their board meetings. I don't know what they're discussing, but it seems like you haven't had any success in getting those big name American fighters. Maybe they do something completely different and just, you know, DAZN USA kind of goes away, and there's Global DAZN, which just focuses on foreign boxing, you know, in Europe and things like that. I don't know. But it's without Canelo, what do you have that warrants $100 a year or $20 a month? You don't have anything. I mean, Haney's good, but like I don't know how many subscribers you're getting to casual audiences because you have Devin Haney fight 2 or 3 times a year.
Like you're not gonna get 600,000 people subscribing for $20 a month, right? Like Canelo did. You're not gonna get 1 million people subscribe for you for Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia right now for $20 a month.
Right,
it's just not gonna happen.
Even if you made Estrada versus Chocolatito, the hardcores love that, and maybe you get some subscriptions, but you're not getting 600,000. You're not getting a tiny fraction of that. If you made,
you're getting like we have to be honest, you're getting like 30,000. Like that's just the reality to it. Like, think about like pay per view. Like imagine if like Chocolatito Estrada was on pay per view for $20. How many buys would he get? Would he get more than Crawford Postal? Like I don't know.
He'd get my money and your money. I don't know how many other people would pay for it, but.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's a paywall. Paywalls always matter when it comes to, like, your star power. Now, someone in the chat said that 92 Aku, who always argues with me, I love you, 92. I hope you know that, saying, we thought DAZN was dead last year. I'm going to imply a lot of tone in that, 92 Aku. First off, I don't think anyone was saying that DAZN was dead last year, especially when the last year they had was a really good year. Those were the AJ Ruiz fights. Canelo fought twice that year. He fought Jacobs and Kovalev. Like, I don't think anyone was saying that DAZN was dead last year. We said that DAZN was treading water for sure. That DAZN needed to do some shit or that they weren't going to survive. And guess what happened? Not only did they not just add U.S. sports to their program, they took away their MLB show. They took away their Canelo. I mean, they literally detracted from what they had. And also, we have the internal memo from DAZN that came out, in April, like when COVID first hit, that this was the worst thing that ever to happen in sports industry, right? And that they were going to cut 70% of their jobs, something like that. Like they cut a huge amount of their workforce too. There's massive labor cuts in DAZN. Come on, like it's not us saying that DAZN is dead this year or last year because no one said it last year. It's DAZN saying it themselves this year because they've canceled out all of their most expensive contracts and they completely sliced their workforce. And I forget the exact percentage. So DAZN's the one on life support right now, and they have been admitting it. These moves admit it too. Like when Gary brings up at the very top that, look, Canelo was a lot of money, so now you have to pay him all that money. if they weren't hurting on cash, that wouldn't be an issue, right? Loss leaders like Canelo, you're supposed to lose money on. But you're going to make money on the back end for what he can provide for you as a brand, as a marketing tool, right? But that's not what they did. They lost money, and then they, time and time again, failed to add to the network to sort of buffer up that loss leader factor of Canelo. So, of course, we got to this situation. Of course, we came to this point. The zone at no point in its history in its U.S. venture ever successfully marketed towards casual sports fans. That's just the reality. The zone in the U.S. is like one notch above Quibi. Am I wrong in that?
No. I mean, like they did market it, like it just
like Quibi did.
What?
Like Quibi did. Quibi marketed the hell out of itself.
What?
No one bought it.
Last year, Major League Baseball, a bunch of the stadiums had the zone advertisement as you know, in the backdrop behind home plate. So not in the outfield, like behind home plate, the one that rotates. The zone was on that for a lot of stadiums, and like the Cubs, the Mets had it. I think the Dodgers might have had it too. Like it was in big markets. It wasn't in Kansas City. The Rangers had it, right? Like it was in a lot of big markets, and it didn't. And I think that like they put more money into baseball than they did Canelo, right?
It might have been more, but it was around the same.
Like, and I don't.
It might have been more overall because it was less years.
You didn't get the baseball fans like you did boxing fans. Now there are way more baseball fans, I suppose, even though the ratings are dying, right? But you didn't get those fans, and then you did nothing for football, you did nothing for college sports, you did nothing for basketball. So I mean, no, you never made. You advertised to baseball fans, but baseball fans are an average of 100 years old. Like they don't know what the zone is. I had to try to explain how to watch a fight with my dad. The Canelo Jacobs fight. He wanted to watch the Canelo Jacobs fight. It's like, how do I get this fight? Right? I was like, it's not like you don't call your cable provider. It doesn't work that way, right? Like you got to download this app. It's like, do you have a smart TV? You don't even know if you have a smart TV. All right, just come over and watch the fight. Like this, I can't explain this thing. Just come over and watch the fight. But that's who you're advertising to. Like my dad's a huge baseball fan. He's 66 years old. You know what I'm saying? Like you're advertising to the wrong people. Basketball, college football, NFL, everyone loves. There is no age of the NFL, right? Like everyone in America besides Matt loves the NFL. But college sports is a younger demographic. Basketball is a younger demographic. Why did you try to go after those fans? They didn't. So they never really made a good run at casual sports fans.
Sorry, Neil, the security guard in the chat, just based off the name, DAZN, you could tell they never really put any thought into the whole deal from the jump. Oh my god, it's so true. Oh my god, everyone mocked that name. That's when you knew it was in trouble, right? Like, come on. When everyone was like, DAZN, really? That's the name? Like, oh my god. It never stopped being a joke. It's sad. It's sad.
I think the baseball fan asked me. I said this. I was like, "Oh, is that DAZN thing?" Like that.
I got a lot of DAZN. Days in. Oh my god, remember those? Those are good days, guys. Those are good days at the Days In. Oh man, I love the concept of DAZN. To be quite honest, I think streaming is the future. I've been quite honest about that. I've always felt like it's failed on execution, and that happens. Like not every streaming service is going to succeed, especially in today's market where all the big companies now are converting towards streaming. You're entering a market that's very different than it was just 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, 4 years ago, right? Like the dynamics of the market, especially in the U.S., I can't speak for every other country, but for the U.S., have demonstrably changed. That's just the reality. YouTube TV has come out. I think Hulu has improved drastically. Amazon Prime has come into play. Peacock, HBO Max, CBS All Access. Like we start talking about all these streaming apps that have now come into the fold and are really all encompassing of what most Americans watch. The idea of adding another paid service that is far above the market value compared to these bigger brands for content that is truly the niche of the niche, it just was never going to succeed.
And there will be a sports app, and I think it'll be league specific. Like
the NFL has its own app, and NBA, yes.
I think the Zone got the idea right. They just didn't execute it right. Like I think there will be a sports app, kind of right, like a Netflix of sports. It will exist. It's just not the Zone. And I don't know. Maybe it's 5 years, 10 years out. The Zone didn't in the U.S. And again, when I say this, I'm only talking about the Zone U.S. The Zone didn't do it, didn't execute it right. Not that the idea was wrong, the execution of it was wrong.
The reality is the idea that there's going to be a one-stop shop for all sports on streaming service is just asinine and not reality based in our current economic structure. It's just impossible. It'd be like saying like all movies are going to be on Netflix. Like that's just stupid. Like if I told you like, hey Gary, every single movie in the history of the world's on Netflix, you'd be like, no, Matt, that's not true.
That's not even reasonable, and you know it.
It's the same with sports. Like that's the reality. You're gonna get points where like Amazon Prime has like the NFL or shit like that. You're gonna get points where like Netflix might have like the NBA. I know they've there's been some internal talk there about live streaming for sports and stuff like that to catch up to what Amazon is potentially doing. HBO Max, Peacock, which is NBC. These are all streaming services that are going to largely sort of divide and conquer the sports landscape, just like they do to movies and TV. Any other sort of form of entertainment, right? Like there's no monopoly of any sort when it comes to entertainment to this degree where we talk about like one streaming service is going to have every single piece of that medium of entertainment. It's just impossible. It doesn't exist. And the idea of the Zone achieving that in the U.S. of all places, was completely asinine. It was a failure from the start. That's the reality. Gary, what other sort of point do you want to make here of Canelo, Golden Boy, the Zone?
It's just sad to see a divorce, even when the marriage is that dysfunctional. You kind of always want to say, well, it's just sad, like Oscar and, for better or for worse, Oscar and Canelo were kind of attached together, right? Like I've said for better or for worse, right? Like Canelo was the Golden Boy when everyone was a Golden Boy fighter. When Golden Boy had all the top, but Canelo was the one that was still a Golden Boy fighter at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. I get the relationship wasn't good, but it's sad to see a divorce. But again, it's good for boxing fans because now we're not going to get Canelo versus Munguia. Yes. And we're going to get Canelo versus Plant, like, look, I get it, right? Like if I said to you, would you rather see Canelo fight Yildirim, Munguia, or would you rather see him fight Plant and Charlo? What would you pick? Of course you'd pick the latter, right? So it's for the best. I mean, it's great for a boxing. The money aside, I get now we have to spend $80 a pop on a Canelo pay. Maybe more, right? Like maybe on the right fight we have to spend $100, which is ridiculous. But it is what it is. Like that's it. The money aside, this is great for boxing fans because we get to see the best fights. We get to see Canelo fight the best, and there's less political divide, right? Because Canelo can basically fight whoever he wants.
And if you are pro fighter, meaning like you are innately against the idea of promoters and sanctioning bodies exploiting fighters, which I think most, if not all, boxing fans are, then the idea of Canelo Alvarez being a complete free agent and having autonomy in his career is a great thing, and we should be celebrating it.
Right? I think this could be a beginning of a trend for the premier fighters to kind of break away from their promoters, because like at this point, even a guy like Errol Spence, Terrence Crawford, what do they need a promoter for? Just get a lawyer to cut you a deal, right? Iron out any bad verbiage.
Errol Spence doesn't have a promoter. Right?
Why does he need Al Heyman? Why does he need an advisor?
That's a lawyer.
But I'm saying if Errol Spence wants to fight Terrence Crawford tomorrow, they're going to tell him no. If Errol Spence wants to fight,
no.
You don't think so? How come the fight hasn't been made? How come none of the PBC guys, Thurman?
Come on, dude.
But they think Porter's expendable. Like they don't care if they lose Porter. They weren't going to give him Thurman.
What do you mean? Thurman talked about
the fight, but they never sent a contract to him. You know what I'm saying? They thought Porter was expendable. If we lose Porter, we still have Pacquiao, Thurman, and Spence. Like we can afford to lose Porter. If Porter wins, great. Now
Thurman and Porter are on record saying they have talked to Crawford, and Crawford said no.
Thurman too?
Yes. Thurman,
okay.
I think it was on the FaceTime interview. I forget who he was talking to. But he mentioned it too.
Okay.
Obviously, Porter for sure. That I think got more rounds.
Yeah.
Because there was more back and forth there. Like Crawford brought it up more in interviews, right? But look, I mean, we're talking about like the best fights being made or could be being made. They are. I mean, they could be at least.
Yeah.
The idea that like Al Heyman's the guy holding it up is kind of ridiculous, in my opinion. I mean, especially when the other guy across the aisle is Bob Arum. Bob Arum.
Right, but Crawford, why does let's choose Crawford. Why does Crawford at this point in his career need a promoter? I don't understand that.
He doesn't, and there's a reason. There's a reason why when he was on Brian Custer's podcast, shout out to Brian Custer, who actually has a decent podcast. Which and also surprising because Brian Custer Showtime, Terrence Crawford on his podcast. I like that. That was interesting. I like that. But Crawford mentioned that this was his last fight on his deal. So I think it's probably going to be safe to say that we see Crawford sign with Al Heyman, have Al Heyman as his advisor and his legal, consultant, and then just have Crawford Promotions or, work with promoters here and there when it makes regional sense, right? That's, I think, what's kind of going to happen in a sense with Canelo, except Canelo's going to have Canelo Promotions, sort of like the Charlos have Lions-only promotions, right? You might see Crawford make his own promotional company as well. So, I mean, there's a lot that could happen. Bud Promotions. Make it like a weed thing. I don't know.
Could you imagine that you get Terrence Crawford promoting your fights?
Oh, my God. Instead of like bum fights, it's weed fights. Oh, my God. I'm all in favor of that. But no, I think that, again, when we talk about who are the people holding up the system running smoothly, let's look at the people that have a almost criminal background of holding up the system. Bob Arum is one of them, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, do we have to bring up the IBF scandal?
I don't understand how he never got in trouble for that. He admitted to it, right? Like I don't understand.
I mean, do we think that guy is the saint here and he really wants to make the fights and it's Heyman, the boogeyman, who's only taking like 5-10% off people's checks, while like Jason Sosa is getting like 60% taken off of his checks while fighting on Top Rank? Like, come on here. Like, this is just, I'm sorry. I cannot, I will admit, this is where I get a little bit of a PBC fanboy here, and you shoot me all you want in the chat. But the idea of Al Heyman being this boogeyman is ridiculous. I think it's been quite evident that Al Heyman is quite willing to make whatever fight makes sense. Okay? And in his mind, maybe he says, hey, Spence, I want you to fight Garcia first. And Spence could say no or yes to that. And he says, yeah, I'd rather fight Danny Garcia first. Why not? Danny Garcia has been in bigger fights than Terrence Crawford. Why not? He's done bigger TV viewership than Crawford. Why not? This is prize fighting, right? What's the bigger prize right now?
It's obviously easier to make, right? I'll get a better split in it. Like, because Terrence Crawford is going to want a 50-50 split with.
Absolutely.
He's not getting that. He's got nothing. Like, look at Spence's 2 pay-per-views and then compare them to yours. You don't get a 50-50 split, bro.
But guess what? When he signs Al Heyman, he'll get a 50-50 split. Mm-hmm. That's just the reality. Okay? And the sad part is I think for a lot of people, they won't realize that regardless of who Crawford signs with next, he is sooner rather than later fighting Spence because they are quickly knocking off everyone else they could fight. That's the reality. right? Like Pacquiao's not going to fight either one of them. So let's automatically just exclude him from all conversations, please, from all future conversations about these guys. Pacquiao got his Thurman win. He's good. He might fight McGregor for like 40 million from the Saudis, but like other than that, nah, he's cool on this shit. Let's be honest about it. Other than that, you have maybe like a Thurman who can rebound and be competitive, but like Spence has already beat Porter. He's about to beat Danny Garcia. Crawford's about to beat Kell Brook. I mean, they're already on a path towards each other, regardless of who he signs with. I don't see the issue. And plus, Chase, he admitted he's pro PBC. I will admit, I think PBC is a better company in terms of how it functions than a lot of other companies I've experienced personally. Like, I'm just being honest in terms of like how things are run, how smoothly things are run, how organized things are run. I never worry about PBC events. It's always the same thing. It's very organized, very standardized. And Golden Boy Top Rank, oh my God, it is a fucking shit show. I'll give credit to Matchroom too. Matchroom is really organized. I will always give a ton of credit to Matchroom in terms of media events and just organizational structure. It's a breeze dealing with them. That's why. I'll be honest. I'm very biased and very open about how that's very petty reasons, but that's why. And also, I think PBC is a better in terms of like pro fighter structure than regular promoters. I don't think that should be a hot take here. That the idea of like making all your biggest stars their own promoters and you taking a very nominal fee off the top is a far better system than having a promoter that takes 20% off the top. Right?
Yeah. I mean, but the promoter is supposed to be able to get you the fight, right? Like, you coming to me, I work for you. Who do you want to fight? Okay, I'll make that fight. You know, it's like a stockbroker. Well, why would I pay a stockbroker if I could just buy my own stocks online? Well, because the ones you pick are a loser. The one I pick are winners, right? Like, in theory, the promoter is supposed to get you the big money fight. So yes, I'm taking a cut, but you're still, at the end of the day, you're still making way more. Obviously, it doesn't work that way, right? Because if that were the case, Terrence Crawford would have fought Thurman. He would have fought Pacquiao. He would have fought Spence. Instead, he fought Mean Machine, Amir Khan. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, you're not getting me the bigger fights, and you're not giving me the best cut, right? Again, I don't know what he was guaranteed. I don't know what's in that contract with Crawford, but it couldn't have worked out for him, big picture wise. There's no way. There's no way that worked out for him.
No, I absolutely agree. Liam Roscoe saying Al Heyman will make fights if they're on PBC. That's also not true. He's made fights that aren't on PBC with his own fighters. He stopped Wilder making career high money because the fight won't be on PBC. Well, that's also not true because they tried to make a fight with like ESPN, and they did twice.
Is he talking about the AJ fight again? The Wilder AJ? Neither guy was really into that fight. If it would have got made, they would have been fine with it. Neither guy really wanted that fight. Neither guy was chomping at the bit for that fight. They wanted the Fury fight, and then they absolutely wanted the rematch, and both got made. If both AJ and Wilder, two of the biggest stars in boxing, both really wanted that fight, it would have gotten made.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know who's at fault for that one, but I don't think it's Al Heyman.
I think AJ and Wilder. I think they were both fine with the fight happening and fine if it didn't.
I mean, yeah. I just don't think like it was like a purely Eddie Hearn, or that's gonna be the one time where I kind of give like the promoters and advisors some slack here. Like, I think Gary's largely right here that it kind of felt like both guys were posturing in a lot of ways, and they wanted to do their own thing. They wanted to get the Fury fight. And that kind of made sense, even at that point when Fury wasn't as active or active at all, because Fury was the lineal guy. Like, he beat Klitschko. Like, that's just the reality. Like, Fury was like the ghost hanging in the shadows, always talking, always butting in when at any point in AJ and Wilder's career, and they were having success when he had that time off. That's just the reality. Liam Roskin, how many times has AJ unified? I don't think that's really
relevant.
Yeah. I mean, unifying against Klitschko off of a 2-year layoff, or that's not even unification, was it?
No, that wasn't the unification fight. Was
No, didn't they put a vacant belt on that shit?
Oh, you're right. They did. He got 2 belts, and then he got his 3rd belt when he beat Parker. Yeah. He got a belt, and then he got Parker. Was it a real question, or was that your gotcha moment? Was that like, was he just curious, or was that like, I got him with this?
I mean, the idea of like Parker, and again, a 2-year-old faded Klitschko is the same thing as Wilder, and in terms of how those fights need to get made is also different too. That's just also an unfortunate reality to it. But again, back to I think the point I was trying to make. PBC or a Hal Heyman or whoever you want to say is they, right? Because I think PBC is like this huge conglomerate of people. So like to say like PBC is a single monolith is a little bit wrong in some fashion. But Al Heyman, if we want to say that, Al Heyman specifically, when you find out he takes less money than every single manager or advisor, then I think it automatically should make fans stop being so angry about him. Like, to be honest, like that's, and maybe that's a very simplistic way of thinking about it, but he takes like half of the usual rate as managers do. Like I'm sorry here. Like to say that guy is innately like ruining the sport in some fashion is just, I don't see how. Like he's putting more money in people's pockets, he's giving them more autonomy in their career, making them their own bosses. Like I don't see what's wrong with that. And like the idea of like, oh, like the fights are hard to make. Like fights have been hard to make in boxing forever. Like this isn't a new, phenomenon where like, oh, all of a sudden we're not getting the best fights possible. Like, do people miss like the mid 2000s, like the dark age where like everyone like
it's been hard to make, right? It's got to be the A side. Like De La Hoya made fights with guys because De La Hoya wanted to, right? But he wanted to fight Pacquiao in his career. He wanted to fight Trinidad in his prime. But the A side has to really want to, and we see that now with Canelo, right? Like Canelo's going to fight whoever he wants now. Fights that like the casual fan versus Caleb Plant wasn't even demanding, right? Because they don't really even know, the casual fan doesn't know how Caleb Plant is, right? But we're going to get that fight because Canelo really wants to make the fight. De La Hoya was the same way. So those fights got made. If the fighters really don't want them, if the fighter's not really, really into them, it's not going to get made. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like it's always been that way. Like even on the top ranked side, we didn't get Crawford Pacquiao when they were both on that side of the street because Pacquiao didn't really want it. Right? You know what I'm saying? Like fights are always difficult to make, especially at that level where it's like, I'll just fight someone else for the same money or similar money.
Yeah. And again, the idea like Wilder like passed up like a once in a lifetime opportunity and like his career's in like complete shit is just wrong too.
It's wrong because he got a huge payday with Fury, and if he wins twice, and if he wins that fight, if he beats Fury the second time, he's a massive star, right? And then he could legitimately demand a 50-50 split with AJ and get it, right? It didn't work out that way. He lost. Okay, he still made a ton of money in doing it, and he got 2 huge fights, right? So I was like, no.
What stars have DAZN made? 0.
Oh, Tevin Farmer.
7. I mean, what stars have Showtime made? What stars have Fox made in the sports world? Like, come on, man. Like, these are just bigger entities. What stars have ESPN made? Like, I might take 80% of that deal that was offered me over here to go over here because I got bigger reach. I'm going to make up that money on the back end because of the reach, because of how much sponsorships I can get off of that, how much advertisement deals I can get off of that. Like, there's a domino effect of being on ESPN, Fox, pay-per-view that doesn't exist when you're on DAZN. And that's just the cold, hard facts. So regardless of kind of like the money DAZN was throwing out there too, I've always told the top guys on boxing to stay away from DAZN. Why? You're on ESPN or Fox. Why the fuck would you go there? You're gonna go from having 80 million eyes on you potentially, 100 million eyes watching you potentially, or if you're Showtime, 20 something million eyes potentially watching you in terms of like How many people have those networks to what? 10 people, 100 people, 1,000 people, 100,000 people, 1,000,000 people. Like, come on here. Like, this isn't rocket science to any degree. Like, I don't get it. DAZN should have always offered that deal as a co-promotion, co-network pay-per-view. And it would have been a way to promote their brand more, and you would argue for the digital rights. At no point did they ever want that. They wanted to sign Wilder. They wanted to get him on DAZN for multiple fights exclusively. He didn't want that. He wanted autonomy. And speaking back to Canelo, right? We should always be in favor of these fighters at the top level, especially when they can, having autonomy from networks and promoters, because that leads to better fights happening. Sorry. Like, that's just the reality. And also the side effect of it was we got Andy Ruiz, AJ, and Wilder Fury, which I think was better for the division and the sport, to be quite honest. I don't think like AJ Wilder at that point like would have like done insane numbers, to be quite honest. Like, imagine if that was on pay-per-view at that point, like 2017, right? That was kind of when they were talking about it. That would be, they would do what, like 500,000 pay-per-views in terms of buys, right? In the US, like, right, I would like guess around there, because again, it's a pay-per-view debut of both guys in this market. Like, look at even the Wilder Fury fight, the first pay-per-view. That was what, 320,000 pay-per-view buys, and the second fight did what, 700,000 plus. Like, there's a little bit of a reason here that fight probably shouldn't have been made as well. But I think people want to look past that because they just want what they want right then and there. Instead, what they got was still completely amazing boxing, amazing historic boxing for this era's division, or heavyweight division. Like, we're going to talk about Andy Ruiz knocking out AJ for this era forever. We're going to talk about Wilder Fury for this era forever when it comes to boxing history. So, like, even what we got besides AJ Wilder was historic shit. So I don't understand, like, why complain about it. I don't get it. Like, if we were getting Spence versus Ocampo right now on pay-per-view, right, instead of Spence Garcia or Spence Porter or Spence Thurman or Spence Crawford, then yeah, I would shit on it. But we're still getting a really good fight that's like completely worthy, adds legitimacy, could be a legacy-defining fight, or not legacy-defining, or it could be legacy-adding fight, absolutely. So what's the big deal? Like, we got time, right?
Yeah.
Like, all these guys are relatively still very young, Wilder included. He's what, 32, 33 years old. Like, he's still very young. Like, this is an issue. We're going to get AJ Wilder eventually, people. I hope people understand that too. And when we get it, it's still going to be amazing.
We will likely get it at some point. It obviously lost some of its luster. And if AJ, like, let's say AJ loses to Fury. Now they both lost. I know AJ's already lost to Ruiz, but if he loses to Fury, we clearly know who the man in the division is and who it isn't. And look, it's still a good fight. It's still a heavyweight fight that people like, but it did lose some luster. And that's what they're saying, right? Like, AJ, after AJ loses to Fury, AJ versus Wilder is still a great fight. I'm still into it, but it's not, it doesn't have the hype behind it that it did 3 years ago. And again, it absolutely could still happen. And either of those, well, like, if AJ loses to Fury, AJ could get a belt back, right? Wilder could get a belt back. So it could be for a heavyweight title. But we already know who the man in the heavyweight division is, especially after Fury beats AJ. It's Fury. So this fight's great. And again, it could still happen, but it's not for the man in the division, right? Like, if Keith Thurman beat, well, I guess those guys have already all fought each other, right? But like, let's say Spence beats Keith Thurman. We still don't know who the man in the 147-pound division is, right? Because that's Spence and Crawford, right? The AJ Wilder fight, which I agree with that fight, it could definitely, absolutely still happen. Wouldn't be for the man in the division.
We don't know that.
Unless something happened to Fury. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the guy that almost lost to Otto Wallin, that guy?
Anyone else, like Terrence Crawford said, anyone else, this fight gets stopped. And again, Daniel Dubois, when does this fight happen? Because Dubois will be the man in the division. Has he run rough shot and dominated the division and destroyed everyone in his way. That fight could happen, right? Benoit versus Wilder could happen.
Lamb's coming after you, man, saying, again, I just can't accept Gary saying Joshua didn't want the Wilder fight when everything he's done points to wanting undisputed. I will say this, not to like parrot this shit, but like, and not to make like a gotcha moment out of what happened, because it kind of was, and it obviously was overblown to a degree, but still, when you're on record saying, hey, offer me 50 million and I'll take the fight, and you get an email saying, yeah, I'll give you 50 million, and you don't take the fight, it's hard. It's really hard to say that. And again, I'll give you 50 million, you come on pay-per-view, and we get like actual like promotion and hype for us. No, you're going to be on DAZN. I mean, let's be honest here, people. Let's just be honest. Lazy Lefty in the chat, aka 4Ben Media in the chat. What up, Lazy Lefty? Hope you're doing well. Gary, any other thoughts on this? I think we're about to actually wrap up because I don't know what else we can talk about.
Also, AJ said maybe, and this was in 2017, maybe I'll fight him in 2018 or 2019 or 2020. Right? He said that. You know, AJ was in no rush to make that fight. I'm not saying he was opposed to fighting, like, oh, there's no way of fighting him. It just wasn't, he wasn't motivated to make that fight. Neither of them were. Right? Everyone's going to choose one side or the other, but like neither party was married to making that fight happen at that time.
It's very much like Crawford Spence or Spence Crawford, and the fact that both guys can do other stuff right now, and they both say they want to do other stuff right now, but everyone's like, no, you need to shut up and make the fight we want. But both guys like, I want to go fight Brooke. I want to go fight Danny Garcia. And everyone else is like, no, don't do that. That's what did happen to AJ Wilder to a degree. Both guys said they wanted other stuff. That's the reality. Like, people forget, like, the talk about that fight started pre-Parker. It started in the build-up to the Joseph Parker fight with Anthony Joshua.
Yeah.
A unification that happened because Joseph Parker ducked Deontay Wilder. I think everyone forgets that part too. That who was negotiating first? It was Deontay Wilder and Joseph Parker. And Joseph Parker did not want the fight. People forget that.
You're right. I forgot that until Matt just mentioned it. That's true. That's true.
So, the fact that people want to throw out, oh, only AJ wanted unification. It's like, no, motherfucker. Like, Wilder literally negotiated with Joseph Parker before Joseph Parker happened. And Parker was like, nah, I don't want that. I want AJ. And when we talked to, me and Name Redacted talked to Parker and what was his trainer's name? Keith Barry? No.
Kevin Barry.
Thank you. Who's a very weird guy, by the way. They were very open about, no, this is the bigger fight. It's the money fight. So, I mean, when we talk about, the best fighting the best, that's only what we want. The fighters care about money. They care about making a living. So, again, I just feel like all the criticism for like these super fights not happening in their just time is just overplayed, to be quite honest. Like, it's overdone. It's over-exaggerated, like this issue. Again, if we got shit fights instead, everyone, I think, should complain. But we didn't get shit fights instead. We got legendary, historic fights. Look at Spence. Look at Spence Porter. Like, imagine if we never got that. Would you be happy with that? No. That was one of the best fights I've seen in years. Like, I think people just need to be a little more understanding of the business and how prize fighting works, unfortunately, because this sport, air quote, is not really a sport in terms of meritocracy. It's 100%. What's the term? Is it kleptocracy? No. Or it's like the rich rule. Is that kleptocracy?
I don't know the word for that. I'm sure there's a word for it. I don't know what it is. I don't know that word that you just said. I mean, you could be right. I just don't know that word. Yeah, meritocracy. It's not like.
Oh no, that's hold on. Kleptocracy is a government whose corrupt leaders use political power to appropriate the wealth of their nation. Probably not the perfect analogy. My bad. But digressing. Sorry. This industry is not one that is really, again, a sport in the truest sense. So I think people just need to be, again, understanding of that. Liam Ross saying that $50 million deal has been well and truly debunked. I mean, how? Because it wasn't like an official contract. So, because Wilder didn't meet with Eddie Hearn the next day in the morning in New York. So, like, I just come on here. And like Gary said, is 100% right. AJ was on record saying, I can fight Wilder this year, next year, the other year. It doesn't matter. It's cool. They were indifferent. You know why? Because they could make money doing other stuff and still have legendary fights and still work towards the Tyson Fury fight. That's the reality. Matthew D'Souza saying, will we get Teofimo versus Tank before 2025? Absolutely. That's 5 years from now. That's half a decade ago, people. Half a decade ago, DAZN wasn't around. That's how fast this sport moves. Think about it. Okay, DAZN wasn't around. The Fox deal didn't exist. We were getting Mayweather versus Pacquiao. That was 5 years ago.
That fight, that's a big fight where both guys are emerging stars. That fight will get made. It'll get made by the end of 2022.
Yes. Yes. If not by the end of 2021.
Because things are still kind of weird. But by the end of next year, by the end of 2022, both guys, Tank is 25 or 26, Teofimo is 23. Like that, within 2 years of today, that fight will be made.
It would be much easier to make that fight than other fights, especially like a Devin Haney fight, because it's both linear TV. You can make a co-network pay-per-view with that fight. It's super easy to make. From a business standpoint, it's already been done already 1,000 times by these companies. So they can do it. That's not an issue.
For a 135-pound fight, there's a lot of money in that fight. Tank had a good audience and gave like one hell of a knockout. Like knockout sell, and Tank got a tremendous one. Tank has a following, he has a fan base, so it's not like nobody watched it. Like people watched it, people like Tank, and then he delivered a sensational knockout. And then what were the ratings for the Teofimo fight? Right? What was the high of that? Right, there was a lot of eyes on that fight, and that was a great performance by Teofimo.
The average was just below 3 million. I forget what the high was. Chase Athletic saying, what about Ortiz turning down that AJ fight before I think it means Ruiz. Ortiz did turn down the fight, but if people remember, and I mean, I interviewed Eddie Hearn and we talked about this. Everyone go check out the interview I did with Eddie Hearn on that subject that had like 20,000 plus views. Okay. Where he says it's not Heyman that's holding up the deal. It was Ortiz's promoters, who I forget who was promoters. Was it Caribe Promotions? There was one of those, Florida promoters that has all the Cuban fighters. Fuck, was it Caribe?
There's Caribe and there's All Star Promotions. I don't know which one.
I think it was Caribe, but I could be wrong about that. If I am, I apologize. But it was his promoter that was holding it. It wasn't Al Heyman at all. It was Ortiz's promoter. Okay. So when we talk about autonomy from promoters, that's what I'm talking about. I wish Ortiz didn't have a slimy ass local regional promoter like Caribe Promotions, who has time and time again fucked over Cuban fighters and like Puerto Rican fighters and Dominican fighters in like the Florida area. Like time and time again. Like Rigondeaux had massive issues with Caribe Promotions. Okay. Like this is not a new phenomenon. So you're right that Ortiz definitely turned down that contract, but it was because of his promoter, not because of Al Heyman, not because of PBC. Am I wrong, Gary? Am I misremembering that?
I don't remember I don't remember the exact details of how that fight got turned down initially. I don't remember.
Well, you can always go check out my interview with Eddie Hearn, which was right after that news dropped, and we talked about it, and we talked about how much money it was, all that stuff. That was breaking news at the time. Knowing all the facts, you can't say that 50 million deal was anything else but a bluff. You're being delusional if you think 50 million was legit. Knowing all the facts, it could be a bluff, but it's not a guarantee that's a bluff. What are the facts exactly, though? Like, that's what I want to know. Like, what are the facts? Was the email fake? Did Al Heyman not agree that was a good... Did Wilder and Al Heyman not agree on that? No. Like, we never heard anything like that. Let's be honest about it. Okay? They were indifferent on that fight because they had other options. and it was all performative. That's all it was. Okay, it's like Crawford and Spence meeting each other in the back during a fight, right? It's all performance. They know that they got other stuff on the table. They know that the way the business runs, they got other shit to do. So they're going to talk a lot of shit and hype it up, but they know it's not happening next. Like, that's just the reality. And Liam Russell and Shelley and Wilder never wanted the Joshua fight. Dude, Shelley Finkel literally negotiated to make the Klitschko fight. Like, what are we talking about here? Like, Shelley has already worked with Eddie Hearn and AJ to make fights. But he wanted to hide his best fighter at the time? Come on here. Like, that's just ridiculous. I'm sorry. And he does not have that amount of unilateral power over Wilder's career. He doesn't. Not like a promoter that has a contract with him in that way, that can sort of soft determine fights to a degree, right? Managers have very little power over their client. That's not how it works. That's why when people say Al Heyman is controlling things, it's ridiculous because he's a fucking manager. He can't do that. Gary?
Shelley Finkel has been involved in this era and going back, my lifetime, we'll say, been involved in some of the biggest heavyweight boxing matches in the history of boxing, right? Like just huge mega fight, Tyson Holyfield. Like, yeah, he wants to make money. And you know what money is? Money's in a Wilder AJ fight. He was not holding up the fight. Finkel was not holding up the fight. Like it would be insane for. There's no bigger fight than that, right? Like the fight didn't happen because neither guy was in love with making it happen. No deal came across that was so intriguing they had to take it, so it didn't get made. Like why is that so hard to admit? You know what I'm saying? It's like, okay, I'll just fight this other guy for a pretty good paycheck. And
sorry, as far as I know, there was at no point where there was a true compromise contract that was sent across the aisle. It was always, no, you either have to come all the way to the zone or you have to come all the way out of the zone, right? In terms of Wilder going to or AJ coming out. That's how it was always framed, okay? When that happens, you know that they don't want to actually negotiate the fight, especially a fight that big, because you always have to make it co-network. There has not been, in the history of my lifetime, a mega fight that has not been co-network. It just does not exist. Sorry. And added to it, co-promoted. Like, that just does not exist. Sorry.
They both have the same promoter at the time, like Tyson and Holyfield, right? Then it's easy to make.
Sorry, what was that?
It's unless they both have the same promoter at the same time, like Tyson and Holyfield, right? I mean, that was a question, but they were both promoted by Don King. So, I mean, but
hell, we've even seen times where like that hasn't worked.
Yeah, absolutely.
But regardless, guys, that's gonna be it for today's show. We've been on for almost 2 hours, and I feel like shit already. So I need to get out of here and go take some medicine. Chase Athletics saying, what happened to DeBella working with Wilder? They probably just didn't want DeBella being the promoter anymore. Like, I mean, the unfortunate reality of the DeBella guys is that, like, we know him a lot in our circle, but he's not a big, like, he doesn't have big reach. Like, Wilder has outgrown a regional promoter. That's why he became a self-promoter. His own promotional company, Bomb Squad Promotions, right? Because he outgrew a regional tri-state area promoter like Lou DiBella. Not saying that Lou DiBella is a bad promoter, because I think he's a really good promoter. But he's still a regional promoter.
He probably shouldn't be in the Boxing Hall of Fame, but he's a good promoter.
He's 100% should be in the Boxing Hall of Fame.
It's the Hall of Fame. It's not the Hall of Fame of really good promoters. It's the Hall of Fame. It's for the best. He's not involved in the best fights in boxing.
There's small-time promoters in the Hall of Fame. There's regional guys that have, like, supported the sport in the regional sense.
And they're the Hall of Fame as promoters, inducted into the Hall of Fame.
I'm not gonna like pull names out of my ass. I'm gonna wait for Santiago to do that.
I should have said Santiago, weigh in on this.
Yeah, please tell me, Santiago. You must have like 5 names off the top of your head. Regardless, what were we talking about? Sorry. Gary, come on, help me out here. Oh, Lou DiBella. Lou DiBella. Yeah, I think again, outgrowing what his resume really brought to the table. Sorry, like that's. I know, like Lou probably will never mention that. outright, or like most media members won't do that because Lou kind of has a really great relationship with all of us because he DMs all of us. That's just the reality. But Lou's a small time promoter, and we talk about fighters making close to 1 million pay-per-view buys, and all the money that brings in. You want to either be your own promoter or have a big time, national, international promoter that can really, elevate your brand, elevate the fight, give you more money, in essence, right? That's what a promoter should do. It should promote the fight, promote the fighter, give them more lucrative options and deals. That's kind of, in essence, what a promoter should do. And I think Lou DiBella can't really do that for Deontay Wilder. It's not a one-for-one analog, but like Canelo and Golden Boy. Like, why did Canelo leave Golden Boy? Because he doesn't need them anymore. Like, that's simple as that. Why did Wilder leave Lou DiBella? Because he didn't need him anymore. Just the reality. Find me, Matt Hunter, MCR, all social media platforms. Make sure you guys go check out the latest episode of History of Socialism, the documentary series I'm producing on Trending Now Network. And what else? We should have a General Strike podcast morning show tomorrow. Morning being like 10 a.m. my time. Cover the news, the election, since the media has called the election. We should have a new president come January. That should be interesting. Yay. What else? That's about it. Hit the like button, share the show, subscribe. Gary, final thoughts.
It's a power move. Canelo walked away from a lot of money with that contract. That's a lot of money to walk away from.
To be fair, they wanted to cut his contract in half. So
that's true. That's true. That made it a lot easier to walk away from. But find me all over social media, 3D Boxing blog, from Texas to the world. Thank you and God bless.
Peace.